Hi there, welcome to the Main Idea Podcast. I am Jen David Lang, and my passion is helping school leaders learn. I read lots of education and leadership books, and I save you time by sharing only the most compelling and impactful books with you. Today, I am excited that we're going to be talking about leadership teams. And not just any leadership teams, but leadership teams in the most successful US schools. That is, schools that have been able to achieve outstanding learning outcomes for all students, regardless of their racial, ethnic background, income, language. So these leadership teams must be doing something right. And today we're going to talk about what leadership teams in successful schools focus on and how they go about doing their work. Today's book is Leadership Teams in America's Best Schools by Joe Johnson, Cynthia Uline, Stanley Monroe, and Francisco Escobedo. And this book stems from the work that the organization NCUST does. NCUST is the National Center for Urban School Transformation. We'll talk about that. And it was founded by one of the authors here to talk to us today, Joe Johnson. So let's start with him. Joe Johnson started his career teaching in San Diego, and then became a school leader and district administrator in New Mexico, and later a State Department official in both Texas and Ohio. Wow, you've covered so many states. He's been a professor and dean of the college and is the founding executive director of the National Center for Urban School Transformation, NCUST, at San Diego State University. And the work NCUST does just sounds so useful. They identify and then study and then promote exactly what it is that are the best practices of schools that are achieving outstanding results for every demographic group. And this work is what led Joe and his co-authors to write this most recent book that we're chatting about today, Leadership Teams in America's Best Schools. And I am particularly excited to have the principal of one of the award-winning schools Joe studied with us here as well. Anna DeJesus is the principal of PS 249, affectionately known as the Caton School in Brooklyn, New York. And that is one of the schools. It's a blue ribbon award-winning school in the book. And Anna has nearly 30 years of experience in public education. Throughout her career, she served as teacher, dual language coordinator, assistant principal, and principal. And whatever role she's been in, her focus has always been on leading initiatives that promote excellence, equity, and student success. And I know this firsthand because Anna's been in my mastermind for many years, 5, 6 years. But I've also been fortunate enough to visit Anna's school in person because I'm also here in Brooklyn. And when I visited, I was struck by that powerful combination of the inclusive school culture and strong teaching and learning that I saw. So wonderful to have both of you here. Anna and Joe, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Well, let's get started. So, NCUST spent 2 decades, I think it was, studying award-winning schools, and the researchers were able to study what high-functioning leadership teams did to make these schools so successful. So, to begin, Joe, given that you studied and observed such successful schools across the US, what made you decide to write a book about leadership teams as opposed to any other aspect of the school?
Well, when we're looking for outstanding schools that are non-selective, elementary, middle, and high schools where we see great results for all students, uh, you have to acknowledge the fact that there just aren't enough of those wonderful examples. And so we have tried to understand, why is it that some schools are able to knock it out of the park when it comes to student achievement for all groups of children? And so one of those elements that we have um, noticed quite clearly is that while all of these schools that we've studied have outstanding principals,
Mhm.
and Anna is certainly an example of that, we also recognize that these schools all have strong leadership teams.
Mm.
Uh, this is a team sport,
Yeah.
not an individual event. And and those leadership teams play a huge role in lifting the school in ways that generate outstanding results for all demographic groups of students.
And thank you. Yeah. And I'm sure any principal out there listening knows they can't do it alone, right? And in fact, you say the reverse in the book that not a single one of the excellent schools you saw was able to do it without the support of a committed team. So it's not like, oh, well, some principals can just work harder. Like literally every successful school had a committed team. And I
Yes.
do wonder, Anna, given that you're the principal of one of the outstanding schools featured in the book, how much do you attribute the success of your school to your leadership team?
Well, I think I attribute a lot to it because again, it's just like Joe said, it's not just a one person team. You need a whole team to be able to, do magnificent things in schools. And so, um, absolutely. It's you need this team to be able to focus on student success, focus on the continuous improvement within your school, your curriculum, and student learning. So this is a team effort. It's not just a one-man show here.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, absolutely. And yes, and I've had several of your teammates in my mastermind. I know you believe in supporting your leadership team so they can have the kind of success that Joe is talking about. So I like in the book, it's kind of like a good to great sort of book, so you researched all these schools and you found that in looking at those that are successful in terms of learning outcomes for all students, that they had six areas in common, six components of school that exist in every one of these successful schools. And I'm sure everyone is dying to know, what are they? Do I have them in my school? And the interesting thing, though, is that really there's five components, and then the sixth one is that leadership team, right? That keeps the other five running. The leadership team is like that foundational component. And you say in the book, quote, the lack of an effective leadership team can hinder, right, all of the other gears or components by slowing, stopping, or reversing progress toward better learning outcomes for all, right? So not having the leadership team can actually impede the success of those five other areas, which you call them gears, right? You use the metaphor of gears, like these six gears of successful schools that work together, like gears. They move together, they run together. And I'm going to briefly give an overview of these six areas and then ask for help for both of you in describing what they are and how leadership teams support them, right? So the first foundational one is having an effective leadership team. The second one, a positive transformational culture. Rigorous curricula is the third. The fourth is effective initial instruction. The fifth is monitoring, confirming, and enhancing learning. And the sixth is effective intervention and enrichment. As a lot of words, so I really just boiled it down because I always like to make things a little simpler. You're basically talking about culture, curriculum, pedagogy, assessment, and interventions. Those are the five areas that leadership teams support. So in these areas, I don't see anything about student behavior or strategic planning, right? Or school planning. It all seems to be about teaching and learning, other than number two, which is about culture. So, Joe, why does that have to be the primary work of effective leadership teams? Haven't you gone into like cabinet meetings and they're talking about, the field trip next week or the PTA meet, right? So, why does this have to be central? Why does teaching and learning have to be central to the work of effective leadership teams?
Bottom line, if teaching and learning this coming year looks the same as teaching and learning looked last year, at the end of this year, the results are probably going to be about the same as the results last year.
Mm.
If you want better results, bottom line is you've got to figure out how to improve teaching and learning. And if you want better results year after year, then you've got to figure out how you're going to improve teaching and learning in a sustainable and substantial way.
Mhm.
It's not that those other factors that you mentioned are unimportant. They are important, but they are important because of the ways they will influence teaching and learning.
Mm. Yes. No, I think that's very true. And a short litmus test, for anybody who's running a leadership team or cabinet team or instructional leadership team, whatever you call it, is to, look back to a recent leadership team meeting and see, what percentage of the time were you talking about teaching and learning and what percentage about administrivia or other issues. And again, it's not that they're not important, but maybe these aren't the issues when you get all of the bodies who are on your leadership team together. That's precious time to spend there. So yeah, I don't know. Anna, how about you? When you hold up a mirror, do you feel like that's the focus of your leadership team? It's more about like the teaching and learning, or is it something you've had to try to increase over time?
No, the focus is always, looking at data, analyzing data, and then what instructional changes need to be made immediately
Yeah.
because you can't sit on it. It's a constant looking at data, analyzing data, and then making the decisions quickly so that students don't get lost in the process.
I love that. Yeah, not the 5-year plan, the 1-year plan. Yeah, the like, what can we do tomorrow? That's great. Um,
And can I interrupt just to
yeah.
say at Anna's school, she's got leaders who are in classrooms every day. They're looking to see what's happening. And so that when they come back and they have discussions about the data, they're able to say, well, I think this is what's happening that's influencing that data. And this is the kind of support that this teacher might need. And so how can we provide that support? And so this isn't just theoretical stuff. This is this is stuff that is getting uh, you know, thumbs on the pulse of what is happening in that school, or ascertaining when there isn't a pulse and somebody needs to get out the life support to help that teacher make a difference.
Just dead bodies, no pulse. Yeah. No, well, I appreciate you weaving in the how, and we're going to weave in the how. So that very concrete small tip you just shared was that, Anna's leaders are in classes observing just like she is, right? She hasn't taken all the observations herself, and that she's sharing that. So I think that's very helpful in picturing like sort of a little bit of what they do. So yeah, I don't know if it makes sense to separate and go through these, but I'll go through each component, starting with culture, right? So um, leadership teams need to help support the culture of the school. And in particular, I'm curious why the leadership team is so important to the development of staff culture in particular. So can you talk about why the development of culture is so important, and then like what is the leadership team's role, particularly when it comes to staff culture? So there's the what and the how, either of you.
Well, I would say, as far as how you build culture, I think as an ILT members, it's the specific members that you have in your ILT, and I think it's just every year coming together and revisiting what is your mission and your vision of your school, and then what are your priority focus areas, and then really reflecting on that at the end of the year and saying, okay, did we accomplish what we wanted this year?
Mm,
And then it's coming as a team and being self-reflective. We self-assess ourselves, and then we come up with, are we going to keep these focus areas? Have we mastered them? Or do we need to continue with them?
mm,
And then from there, we take it and branch it out then to another team because we believe in distributive leadership. Yes, the instructional leadership team is the top team where it starts, but we first self-assess before we take it out, and then we take it back to our vertical leadership teams, which are 2 teachers per grade, and now we have them self-assess. So then we look at our priority focus areas and then we decide, are we keeping these? Are we switching them up? What are we doing? And then every year we're creating these priority focus areas as a team
So
through
when
this distributive leadership process.
that's amazing. And when you say you branch it out, do you mean you have each of your ILT or instructional leadership team members bring it back to other teams? The question of what should be our priorities, is that what you mean by branching it out?
So the ILT members are part also of this vertical leadership team, which
Okay.
extends then into the teacher teams.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's great. And I think the leadership team is always a wonderful model for all the other teams in the school. And you leading the leadership team, you're modeling
Yeah.
how an effective team can work. And I'm particularly interested in the leadership team focusing on the culture of the staff, because this quote really hit me in your book, Joe. You wrote, quote, "Our observations of America's best schools have led us to conclude that school personnel, that is the staff, are not likely to build a culture for their students that is more positive and transformational than the leaders build for the school personnel, the staff." So I know sometimes we all think it's all about the kids, it's all about the kids, but if you don't stop and build a culture for the staff, it's unlikely the staff are going to build it for the students. So is there anything that comes to mind in thinking about building the culture, either of the leadership team itself or the leadership team branching out and building it for the staff? Anyone want to speak to that?
So, the bottom line is this work of improving learning outcomes for all groups of kids. That's hard work. And and so if people are going to commit to engaging in that work, if they're going to commit to rolling up their sleeves and figuring out how they can improve their practice, they need to feel with some level of certainty that leaders in the school value them.
Yeah.
If they don't conclude that this is a place that values me, um, there is a high likelihood that that principal will get compliance behavior, but will not get the full effort needed to generate the kinds of outcomes that we need in our schools that are serving diverse populations of children.
And I love that as a way to check in on your team, right? Your leadership team, you're having a meeting. What did you do this week to show our teachers that you value them, right? Or in a survey to teachers, right? Rather than just the survey about the principal, what is the leadership team doing to help you feel valid or not, I think that's a great point. And that the leadership team, even though there is a big focus on teaching and learning, like you're saying, Joe, if you don't build the culture, the teaching and learning isn't going to come. So first role of the leadership team is building that culture. And then the next gear is rigorous curricula, right? The curriculum piece. So you write that in award-winning schools, the leadership team supports teachers to increase the rigor of their instruction in ways that help transform how students perceive themselves as students. So can you talk a little bit about rigorous curriculum and the leadership team's role? Either of you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Go. Yeah.
All right. So with this rigorous curriculum, it's like I said before, it's constantly looking at the data and feedback continuously. And you're refining your curriculum and your instructional practices as you go. And this only happens when you create this space and you commit to this space of meeting with your instructional leadership team monthly. Twice a month is when we meet. And it's a very focused meeting. And the meeting it's going to talk a little bit about data. We may show some data if we have a recent pre-assessment or assessment that just happened. That's going to be talked about. And then right from there, as we're looking at data and we're looking at the trends and we're looking at the movement, we're also talking about teachers and how teachers are doing, which teachers are struggling, which teachers need help. And so then from there, we come up with a game plan. Okay, well, maybe this teacher needs another teacher to come in and help and provide intervention for students. Or maybe this teacher needs some coaching or some intervisitations. Or maybe we need to do a lab site where we're watching each other, in lab sites and practice, like high instructional strategies where teachers are learning from one another. So it's a constant looking at what's going on, keeping a pulse of what's happening in your school, but it's that quick, not a band-aid that you're putting on it, but you're really coming up with an action plan of how you're going to help this teacher, which in turn is going to help students.
That's
It's
really
a
in
very quick
supporting
process.
and supporting all of the
Yeah.
teachers. And you use the term refining curricula because we never just keep the curriculum the same. Our students change,
Absolutely.
things change. So are your leadership team members working together to refine it, or are they working with the third grade team and the first grade team to where does the refining of the curriculum happen?
The refinement happens within the instructional leadership team, and then it extends out into the teacher teams.
Okay,
But
great.
it's talked about and it's planned within the instructional leadership team because you want to go back with a game plan. You just don't want to go and say, okay, this is what we have to do and why. So we have data. We have data that we're going to look at. We're going to look back at our curriculum maps. We're going to see why this is not working. We're going to see why this teacher is doing a lot better in this standard versus this other teacher. Why? So let's talk. And then that's how it goes back. But the conversation begins always within the instructional leadership team. That's where it begins.
And that
It
also provides
branches out.
for consistency, right? You don't have different
Absolutely.
leaders saying different things. And then one more question about how, I know Joe wants to jump in. So on the leadership team, Anna, do you have some leaders who focus on either certain grades or subject? It's
Yes.
an elementary school. I don't know if we mentioned
So
that.
very, very quickly, I'll go over
Yeah.
who's in my instructional leadership team. So it's
Yeah.
myself as a principal,
Yeah.
my two assistant principals.
Yeah.
I have my multilingual learning specialist for English language learners.
Yeah.
I also have my data specialist, which deals with the data. I have my two literacy coaches, and then I also have two intervention teachers. And these are my leaders.
Yeah.
So my APs, these are my little APs.
Yeah.
And they're in constant contact, even a lot more than I am, with teachers in classrooms. So it's a constant, we're looking, just like Joe said, we are very visible. We walk around a lot. And when we see something, we immediately attend to it. We just don't ignore it. It gets immediately looked at, addressed, and fixed.
Fantastic. Go ahead, Joe. Sorry. Yeah.
In that regard, I would add that whenever I visit struggling schools, I never hear anybody say, "Oh, we don't have rigorous curriculum." I never hear anybody saying, "Oh, well, we don't teach the standards." And in fact, everybody says, "Of course, we teach the standards."
Yeah.
And so the issue that I think Anna is pointing out is that the intended curriculum does not always match the enacted curriculum.
The pedagogy. Yeah.
What is actually
Yeah.
enacted in
Yeah.
classrooms
Yeah.
may differ because this teacher really understands this standard at a deep, high level, and this other teacher maybe not so much. Or this teacher is really understanding what the standard is all about and what are the kinds of questions that students need to be able to answer and gets the why behind that. And maybe this other teacher doesn't quite. So what Anna is saying is that her leadership team is in those classrooms, they're seeing what's happening, they're recognizing the nuanced differences between how teachers are enacting that curriculum. And then they're able to support those teachers in leveling up so that all students at the Caton School are likely to benefit from a truly rigorous curriculum. And that is why we see huge percentages of honest students demonstrating proficiency on very challenging state standards.
So I like that you transitioned us to the fourth gear, which is that, effective instruction, in particular effective initial instruction.
Mhm.
And you say in the book that in many schools, teachers are using the same old instructional strategies that just don't improve student learning results. So, yeah, in Anna's school or elsewhere, when instructional leaders are going in and seeing some classrooms that need more work than others when it comes to pedagogy, what are the leadership teams doing? What are their actions or what are the structures in place for leadership teams in successful schools to help improve the lived curriculum, the actual instruction? What are you seeing?
So if I can,
Yeah.
Anna, let me take a first stab at this one, and then you can follow up with some really practical things that
Yep.
you do. But I think here it's really about, is instruction effective
Yep.
for the students being served? So
Mhm.
what that means is, do we see evidence that all of the students, all groups of students are really demonstrating understanding?
Mhm.
So um, it doesn't matter what little checklist we fulfill in terms of what the teacher does, if the bottom line is that there's this group of English language learners where we don't see any evidence that they are understanding this concept, or if we see that there are this group of children with IEPs who just are absent from the dialogue. Nobody's checking in with them. Nobody has any sense of if they are learning this. Then that means that we don't have evidence that the instruction is effective for those students. And so it's about, how do we tailor what we do in a way that's going to help us know that all the children in that classroom, all the groups of children in that classroom are actually demonstrating understanding.
So I like that you're moving away from just focusing on the teaching, but it's really about the learning, right? And that does involve the assessment, the fifth gear, as well as the interventions, the sixth gear. But and
They're
I think
all
that's
intertwined.
all of
Yeah.
them. They're all intertwined. That's why you chose the metaphor of the gear. But yeah, so my question is, what is the role of what can the leadership team do about it? So let's say the leadership team is examining data, right? Like Anna talked about in their leadership team meetings, and you see there's certain demographic groups or certain teachers' classrooms where the students aren't performing as well. So that's a teacher's purview, right? So what's the leadership team supposed to do about it? What's in place? Any suggestions for listeners?
Yeah, I would say like definitely as an instructional leadership team, one of the things that we do like to do is do a walkthrough as a team
Mm-hmm.
and focus on something specifically. For example, like this year, small group. We were seeing, the data was showing that there was, some gaps, and we felt like it was possibly coming from small groups. So we decided to focus on, let's say, one specific grade and then look at small groups and then come together as a team to
Mm-hmm.
discuss our observations. And then once you come together as a group to discuss the observations that each of the members observe, then the talk changes, and it's where we're saying, all right, which teacher needs some specific coaching? Which teacher needs a specific professional learning opportunity? What kind of support does this teacher need? And as I talked earlier about data and immediately addressing the needs for students, you have to do the same thing with teachers. Because if teachers are learning and improving, students are going to learn and improve right along with them.
Mm-hmm.
So when teachers are struggling, you have to also address that. You can't not ignore it. You have to immediately provide them the support they need. If that's an visitation into a more experienced teacher, if that's a coach that I have to bring from outside to come in and support this teacher, I'm going to do that. If that's my own literacy coaches that have to come in and model, I'm going to do that. If it's a specific book, a specific material, whatever it is, I'm going to provide that for my teacher, because at the end of the day, when I pour into my teachers and I support them so that they improve and that their pedagogy improves, it's a win-win situation for my kids and for my teachers.
So the instructional leadership team is sharing what they saw in classrooms and identifying which teachers need help and with what. And they're also not just observing, but looking at data. And then they're part of the solution of thinking, is this an outside person, a literacy coach who needs to come in? I assume members of your ILT also might model a lesson themselves, or maybe they need to co-plan a lesson with a teacher or co-teach. Are they involved with all kinds of those instructional activities?
Absolutely, everything you mentioned.
Yeah. And you couldn't do that as one single leader, right? You couldn't possibly be in classrooms.
I couldn't do that.
What?
I couldn't do that by myself.
Right. You couldn't possibly.
I couldn't possibly do that, Jen. That's why this is important to me.
It's so important. And this is the work of the team, right? Modeling, co-teaching, co-planning, identifying articles, all of that. And I'm really glad you brought up another part of the how, the walkthroughs, because I find that's useful, not just for keeping your fingers on the pulse, but also for training your leadership team members so they can be instructional leaders. If you do the walkthroughs together, right, and then you step into the hall, you can start to norm, what did you see as the highest leverage point? What piece of feedback would you give? And you're starting to grow your leadership team members as instructional leaders and experts.
Absolutely.
And so I like that tool for that as well.
One thing just to underscore a little bit, maybe, is that when we were there earlier this year visiting the Caton School,
yes,
we heard instructional leaders talking about small group instruction. And so similarly, there might be leaders in other schools who are talking about whatever instructional strategy may be a core for them. But at the Caton School, we heard leaders saying, well, yes, this particular teacher may be doing small group instruction, but isn't necessarily getting the most out of it. And so how can we help this person really understand why they're doing small group instruction? Because we need small group instruction to be done in a way where every student is engaged, where every student is demonstrating what they're thinking, what they understand, what they don't understand, so that then that teacher has the opportunity to get in there and to work with that and to help that student learn. So I think that it is this example that we see in the Caton School is really a great example of what we see in strong schools, where that leadership team is really thinking big about it. Are the instructional strategies working in a way that's getting great learning for all students?
That's a good point, and I want to follow up on that. So you give the example of small group instruction, right, in the Caton School, and as part of intervention, let's say. And what does that mean, right? Does small group instruction mean instruction in small groups? What does that mean? And so, or effective instructional strategies. I wonder how much you see it as the work of the leadership team to come to clarity and understanding of what these mean. Otherwise, right, you have one assistant principal who's observing one small group instruction in the third grade and another assistant principal. Is part of the work of the team defining what is effective small group instruction? What are the instructional strategies that we at our school believe are the most impactful? And this is what they actually mean. Yeah, you're nodding your head. Is that some of the work is defining?
Yes, because when you come back after your observations and now you're talking about the evidence you're seeing, now it's coming up. Now it's as a team, you're coming together with what are the expectations for small groups so that small groups are successful, so that students can get the best out of small groups. So yes, it is. It's looking at the evidence as a team, but you can't do it alone and you can't go to one grade or another grade. It's almost like you focus. The way we do it is focus specifically like on one grade at a time, and then really look at that grade, look at data, and then decide what's happening with the small groups and who's struggling, who's not struggling, and then coming up with a game plan of how we can make those small groups more effective for everyone.
And it's probably more powerful for a whole team to refine a definition of what effective small group instruction is. And it's more powerful than just having you as the leader with your idea of what it means, trying to get it out to everyone versus like you're saying.
It just kind of norms like what you're looking at as a team.
Yeah.
That you're talking the same language, you're looking for the same evidence. And that's very important too, that you're on the same page with what effective small groups look like.
So these are some of the ideas of how leadership teams can impact the entire school's interventions, their assessment, pedagogy, curriculum, culture. I'm wondering, in both of your experiences, what types of systems or protocols or structures you've seen in effective leadership teams. Anna already talked about how her instructional leadership team meets twice a month. But I wonder, are there any other structures you can think of about either how meetings are run or the work of the team that might be helpful for listeners?
Well, I could add a little bit more to, just the twice a month. I mean, you definitely have to have an agenda, and you want to stick to an agenda, and you don't want to waste time when you're meeting with an instructional leadership team. So we usually have an agenda. It's an open rolling agenda that our team gets. So before we're even meeting, we already know what we're going to be discussing. And we have it in a form where even if we're looking at data, the data is already plugged in into our agenda so that we have it ready to go, ready to analyze it. We're looking at trends, we're looking at subgroups, we're looking at, sometimes we're looking at specific, questions that students struggled. We may be looking at pre-assessments, formative assessments, all kinds of assessments we're looking at. And then from there, it's also like, what are our next steps? You just don't want to have an instructional leadership team and then nothing comes out of it, because so many times there's so many meetings that go on in school and you come in the way you left.
Yeah.
There's nothing that we're going to do afterwards. So, and we've improved over the time. That's one of the things that can happen with meetings. And I say that we've improved a lot with that and trying to stick to like, okay, what are our next steps? What are we going to do? Who's going to do it? And when is it going to get done?
And those are in the rolling agenda, and then you revisit those the next meeting.
Absolutely. There's a note taker.
Yeah.
There's deadlines. There'll be dates. It'll be like names of students. If we're talking about specific students, it's very specific of what's going to happen.
And who runs the ILT meetings and who writes the agenda?
My assistant principals.
The assistant principals, great. And I'm also wondering, because you talked a lot about data, and I know a lot of teachers and teacher leaders can be sort of overwhelmed. How did you develop the data literacy of your instructional team so they knew how to look at it and the questions to ask?
I would say that also has improved over the years.
Mm,
Let's say for the past 4 years, we hooked up with a company that
mm,
has made our assessments into just one platform, which has made it so much easier for us to be able to look at it, analyze it. And I would say over the years, it also has become independent of us, where the teachers have access to it by themselves. So
mm.
they're also
Yeah.
looking at it during their teacher teams. We're looking at it during our vertical leadership team. And within the past few years that we've joined this company, even the students are
Wow.
looking at data. They'll take an exit ticket
Yeah.
and they're going to review it right there. So the
Wow.
data hasn't just, it has left the instructional leadership team, not left because we still have it, but it has branched out
Yeah.
into the whole entire school, where now the data is not a secret. The data is visible to everybody, even to the kids.
Wow.
That's
Well,
powerful.
that is very powerful. Hats off to you for that, for realizing that was a need, probably from some of the self-reflection you talked about doing at the beginning and the end of the year. I
Mhm.
want to be cognizant of the time and just end with a quick lightning round where if Joe, that we talked about a lot. So in your book, if you could sort of provide a one or two sentence, like what is the main idea or takeaway from your book? And then Anna, if you could share, this is a lot for somebody who's leading a school and wants to strengthen their leadership team. Like what's a good first step? And yeah, why don't we start with that? So Joe, in a sentence or two, what's the main idea or takeaway from your book?
So, um, while Anna provides a great example of how she has shaped a leadership team for the Caton School, it's important to know that every school's leadership team or teams looks different.
Mm,
And so sometimes there's a lot of personnel resources, sometimes it's fairly minimal.
mhm,
Um, but the bottom line is, how do you shape a team that is going to help teachers and other personnel feel supported? How are you going to shape that team in a way that is going to help educators feel like the leadership of the school is on their side
mm,
and is trying to help them
mhm,
uh, be the best educators that they can be. Um, and and that ultimately is what this is about. Uh, because when that happens and people see
mhm.
that they have that support,
Yeah.
then they are much more likely to roll up their sleeves
Mhm.
and strive to make a powerful difference for all the children they serve.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Mhm.
I love that. That's a wonderful feeling. Anybody would want to work in a school with a leadership team that made them feel that way. So thank you for that. And what do you think, Anna? So if somebody wants, to take
I
a
would
first step in improving their leadership team, what do you think?
I would say it's just really like looking at your staff and really choosing
Mm,
which team members can be
yeah.
part of your instructional leadership team. And I think like when you create this leadership team, which I mean, I love the leadership team I have. It's a powerhouse of talent, years of experience, commitment. I think that in within that instructional leadership team, I think is us modeling how we collaborate, right, as a team, how
Hmm.
we work together, and how we support one another.
Mm,
And I think when we model that, when we then share that distributive leadership that goes within the other teams, I
mm,
think modeling it within the instructional leadership team is the first priority. And when teachers watch that,
yeah.
then they feel empowered,
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, obviously carefully choosing team members, and they don't always have to be the people with the titles, right? You could
right?
include other members. And
Mhm.
then, something you could change tomorrow is just how you model that. Everything from, if the team meeting starts at 3:30 p.m., starting at 3:30 p.m., or if you value different voices, having, a protocol and opportunity for everyone to speak, you can model that and they will bring that back. So thank you. And yeah, so how can people learn more about you all and your work, Joe and Anna? Where would you send them?
I will go to San Diego where Joe's at. I love San Diego.
It's beautiful.
Well, you can come visit my school. I mean, I definitely open the doors. I'm very open to visitors. So you can definitely visit us.
I'm going to put the address in the show notes. Yeah.
Yes, and you can follow us. We're on Twitter, well now X.
Yeah.
We have an Instagram page we just created this year, which has so many neat things that happen within our school community.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. And how about you, Joe? Anywhere else you send people?
So I would just encourage people to visit our National Center for Urban School Transformation website, ncust.com. And not only can you see great information about the Caton School, but you can find information about the dozens of other schools that NCUST has identified and awarded over the years. There's so many great schools out there, and each year NCUST hosts a symposium that is a live event that features these wonderful schools. So on the website, ncust.com, there's information about the annual symposium, which I believe will be in March of next year. And I encourage folks to look at our Leadership Teams in America's Best Schools book to find out even more about the Caton School and the other schools that are the focus of that book.
Well, thank you, Bob. I'm really just in awe of both of your work. I mean, Anna on the ground, against all odds, building a school and a leadership team where, all students from all backgrounds are succeeding, and you can see that she welcomed you into her school. And Joe for writing and researching about it and sharing with other educators that it can be done, and this is what it looks like, and these are the components of effective schools across the US. So thank you to both of you for joining me and giving me your time today. Thank you so much. And
but Jen, also thank you
Yes.
for hosting this and for providing this opportunity for educators around the country to learn more about great schools and the books being written about them. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you, Jen.
thank you. And for those listening, thank you for taking the time as well. I know how busy you all are. And if this conversation was helpful in getting you to think about, ways you might improve your own leadership team, I hope you'll share the podcast with others, maybe even share it with people who are on your leadership team or might become a part of your leadership team. And I'll be back in a few weeks. Until then, learn more and lead better.